You will not believe what happens to the girl at the end. Make sure to like and subscribe so we can continue writing stories like this one. I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments below.
In the heart of dusty Promise Gulch lived Jebediah, a rancher known more for his gentle hands than his cattle wrangling skills. Folks said he could coax a tune out of a knotty pine, and his whittling was legendary. He carved toys for all the children, each one a little masterpiece. So, when Sheriff Clem, a man built like an oak and twice as stern, came calling, Jebediah knew it wasn't about stray cows. "Jebediah," Clem began, his voice a low rumble, "got a situation. My brother passed, and his little girl, Lily, is all alone. She's coming here." Jebediah nodded, his brow furrowed with concern. "That's a tough break, Clem. Where will she stay?" The sheriff shifted uncomfortably. "Well, the only place right now is the jail." Jebediah raised an eyebrow. "The jail?" It was a dark, cold place, hardly suitable for a child, especially one who had just lost her parents. He knew Clem wasn't happy about it, but Promise Gulch wasn't exactly overflowing with spare rooms. "I understand, Clem," Jebediah said, a plan already forming in his mind. "Tell you what, I'll see if I can make things a little more comfortable for her." He knew the jail was meant for holding folks who broke the law, but Lily hadn't done anything wrong. She needed comfort, not confinement. He thought about the smooth, light wood he had been saving, perfect for a special project. An idea sparked in his mind, an idea that could maybe bring a little peace to the little girl's heart. It would be a challenge, but Jebediah never shied away from a challenge, especially when it involved helping someone in need. This time, it wasn't about fixing a fence or mending a broken wagon wheel. It was about mending a broken heart. The special task Sheriff Clem alluded to weighed heavily on Jebediah's mind. Clem, usually a man of few words, had looked genuinely troubled. Jebediah knew that under that gruff exterior beat a heart as big as the Montana sky. The loss of his brother and the sudden responsibility for young Lily must be a heavy burden. Jebediah recalled the few times he'd seen Clem interact with children. He was awkward, stiff, unsure how to relate. Wrangling outlaws was one thing, but comforting a grieving child was a whole different ball game. That was where Jebediah felt he could step in. He walked over to his workbench, running his hand over a smooth plank of pine. It was a gift from Old Man Hemlock, who claimed it came from a tree struck by lightning. "Holds a bit of magic, that one does," Hemlock had said with a wink. Jebediah had been saving it for something special, something worthy of its unique grain and energy. He believed he had found it. The thought of Lily, a little girl lost and alone, staying in the cold jail cell spurred him into action. He envisioned her small frame swallowed by the rough wool blankets, the clanging of the jail door echoing in her ears. It was a picture that needed changing and fast. He picked up his favorite carving knife, its handle worn smooth from years of use. It felt like an extension of his own hand. He would carve something that would bring her comfort, something that would whisper lullabies and chase away the shadows. He would carve her a cradle, a safe haven in a place that felt anything but. It was a task he felt uniquely suited for, a chance to use his gift to bring a little light into a dark situation. Sheriff Clem, a man whose face seemed permanently etched with the seriousness of his job, was known throughout Promise Gulch for his unwavering commitment to law and order. His booming voice could silence a rowdy saloon in seconds, and his steely gaze could make even the toughest outlaw think twice. But beneath that formidable exterior, Clem was, at his core, a good man. The tragic accident that claimed the lives of his brother and sister-in-law had shaken him to his core. He'd always been a solitary figure, comfortable in his routine of enforcing the law. Now suddenly he was responsible for a little girl, a child he barely knew. The thought terrified him more than any gunfight. Lily arrived on the stagecoach, clutching a worn teddy bear almost as big as herself. Her eyes, wide and filled with a sadness that no child should ever know, scanned the dusty street. Clem, standing stiffly beside the stagecoach, felt a lump form in his throat. He knelt down, trying to soften his usual stern expression. "Lily," he said, his voice surprisingly gentle, "I'm your Uncle Clem." Lily stared at him for a moment, then buried her face in the teddy bear. Clem awkwardly patted her shoulder, unsure what to say. He picked her up, her small body feeling fragile in his arms. He carried her to the jail, the only place he could think to take her. The jail wasn't much. One main cell, a small desk for Clem, and a pot-bellied stove that struggled to keep the place warm in winter. Clem had tried to make it as comfortable as possible, adding extra blankets to the cot and borrowing a rocking chair from Mrs. Gable down the street. But it was still a jail, a place of bars and shadows, hardly a welcoming home for a grieving child. He knew he needed help, and he knew just the man to ask. He needed Jebediah. The incongruity of Lily's presence in the jail was not lost on anyone in Promise Gulch, least of all Sheriff Clem. He felt a pang of guilt every time he looked at her, huddled in the corner with her teddy bear, her eyes wide with a mixture of fear and grief. The jail, with its cold stone walls and iron bars, was a symbol of everything Lily didn't need: confinement, punishment, and loneliness. Clem tried his best to soften the harshness. He brought her extra blankets, told her stories, though he wasn't very good at it, and even attempted to sing her lullabies, which were even worse. But the jail was still a jail. The clanging of the cell door, the heavy footsteps of the occasional drunkard being locked up for the night, the overall feeling of oppression, it was all wrong for a child. He found himself constantly apologizing to Lily even though she didn't fully understand. "It's just temporary, Lilybug," he'd say, using the nickname her mother had used. "Just until we can find you a proper home." But deep down, Clem knew that finding a proper home wouldn't solve everything. Lily needed more than just a roof over her head. She needed comfort, security, and a sense of belonging. The townsfolk, too, felt the awkwardness of the situation. They'd peek through the jailhouse window, offering sympathetic smiles and small gifts of food or toys. But everyone knew that a jail cell, no matter how well-intentioned, was no place for a child. It was a constant reminder of Lily's loss and Clem's inability to provide her with the nurturing environment she deserved. The situation gnawed at Clem, making him more irritable than usual. He longed for a solution, a way to erase the sadness from Lily's eyes and transform the cold jail into a warm and welcoming space. He hoped Jebediah's skills could somehow make that happen. Jebediah didn't wait for Clem to explicitly ask for help. He saw the sheriff's unease, the worry etched on his face, and the sadness clinging to Lily like a shadow. He knew what he had to do. That evening he walked over to the jail, a small bundle of wood tucked under his arm. Clem looked surprised to see him. "Jebediah? What brings you here so late?" "Just wanted to check on Lily," Jebediah replied, his eyes meeting Clem's. "And I had an idea." He gestured towards the wood. "I thought maybe I could build her something to make her feel a little more at home." Clem's face softened. "That's mighty kind of you, Jebediah. But I don't want to put you out." "No trouble at all," Jebediah assured him. "In fact, I've been looking for a good reason to use this piece of pine. It's special." He paused, then added, "I was thinking. A cradle." Clem's eyes widened. "A cradle?" It was the perfect idea. Something small and comforting, a symbol of new beginnings in a place of endings. "Jebediah," he said, his voice thick with emotion, that would be wonderful." Jebediah smiled, a genuine smile that reached his eyes. "Then let's get started." He set up his tools in a corner of the jail, the scent of pine mixing with the musty smell of stone and iron. He glanced over at Lily, who was watching him with curious eyes. He winked at her, and she offered a shy smile in return. He knew it wouldn't be easy, transforming the harsh jail cell into a welcoming space. But with each stroke of his carving knife, with each carefully shaped piece of wood, Jebediah hoped to chip away at the sadness and bring a little bit of comfort to Lily's world. He was building more than just a cradle, he was building a bridge between sorrow and hope. The work began slowly, deliberately. Jebediah ran his calloused fingers over the wood, feeling its texture, its warmth. He closed his eyes, imagining the gentle sway of the cradle, the soft murmur of a lullaby. He wanted it to be perfect, a vessel of peace in a place of unrest. The scent of pine filled the jail cell, a welcome change from the usual musty odor. Shavings curled around Jebediah's feet like golden ribbons as he carefully shaped the sides of the cradle. He worked with a quiet intensity, his brow furrowed in concentration. Each stroke of his knife was precise, guided by years of experience and a deep sense of purpose. He envisioned the rocking motion, a slow, rhythmic sway that would soothe Lily to sleep. He carved the rockers with extra care, ensuring they were perfectly balanced, creating a gentle, almost hypnotic movement. He wanted it to mimic the feeling of being held, of being safe and loved. He carved small details into the wood, tiny stars, delicate flowers, and a whimsical moon. He wanted Lily to have something to look at, something to spark her imagination and distract her from her sadness. He imagined her tiny fingers tracing the carvings, finding comfort in their smooth, simple shapes. Clem watched him work, mesmerized by Jebediah's skill and dedication. He marveled at how Jebediah could transform a rough piece of wood into something so beautiful and comforting. The rhythmic tapping of the hammer and the soft scraping of the knife became a soothing soundtrack to the jail cell, a counterpoint to the harshness of its surroundings. Even the shadows seemed to soften, drawn in by the warmth of Jebediah's presence and the promise of the cradle he was creating. It was more than just woodworking, it was an act of love. As the days turned into evenings, the rhythmic sounds of Jebediah's carving became a constant presence in the jail. The tap-tap-tapping of the hammer, the soft scraping of the knife against the wood, the gentle rasp of the file, these sounds, once foreign and perhaps even a little unsettling, began to weave their way into the fabric of Lily's days. At first, Lily would watch Jebediah with wary eyes, clutching her teddy bear tightly. But as the cradle began to take shape, as she saw the stars and flowers emerge from the wood, her curiosity grew. She started to sit closer, her gaze fixed on Jebediah's hands as they worked their magic. The sounds of the carving, surprisingly, didn't frighten her. Instead, they became a sort of lullaby, a comforting rhythm that soothed her anxieties and eased her sadness. It was a sound of creation, of kindness, of hope. It was a sound that told her she wasn't alone. One evening, as Jebediah was carefully smoothing the edges of the cradle, he glanced over at Lily. She was sitting on the floor, humming softly to herself, her eyes closed. And then he saw it, a tiny, hesitant smile playing on her lips. Jebediah's heart swelled with warmth. It was the first time he had seen her smile since she arrived in Promise Gulch. It was a small thing, but it was a victory. He knew then that the cradle was working its magic, bringing a little bit of light back into Lily's world. The jail cell still had its bars and its cold stone walls, but now it also had the scent of pine, the sound of carving, and the glimmer of a smile on a little girl's face. Slowly but surely, the harshness of the jail was being replaced by something softer, something gentler, something that felt a little bit like home. And Lily, surrounded by the sounds of creation and the kindness of strangers, began to feel a little bit safer. News of Lily's situation and Jebediah's efforts spread quickly through Promise Gulch. The townswomen, in particular, felt a deep sense of empathy for the little girl. They imagined their own children in her place and their hearts ached. They knew they had to do something. At first, they were hesitant, unsure how to approach the stern sheriff and the unusual situation. But the sight of Lily's sad eyes peering out from behind the bars of the jail cell spurred them into action. One by one, they began to visit, bringing small gifts and offering words of comfort. Mrs. Gable, the baker, brought freshly baked cookies, their warm scent filling the jail with a homey aroma. Miss Abigail, the schoolteacher, brought picture books and read stories to Lily in a gentle voice. Even the usually reserved Mrs. Henderson, the blacksmith's wife, brought a hand-knitted doll, its bright colors a stark contrast to the gray stone walls. Slowly but surely, the jail cell began to transform. Toys appeared on the floor, replacing the cold, hard stones. Blankets were spread over the cot, adding a splash of color and warmth. The atmosphere softened, the harshness of the jail fading under the weight of kindness and compassion. Sheriff Clem, initially unsure how to handle the influx of visitors, soon realized the positive impact they were having on Lily. He watched as her eyes lit up at the sight of a new toy, as she giggled at Miss Abigail's silly stories, as she snuggled with Mrs. Henderson's doll. He saw her begin to heal, to open up, to trust. The visits from the townswomen became a daily routine, a bright spot in Lily's otherwise bleak existence. They brought not only toys and treats but also a sense of community, of belonging. They showed Lily that she was loved, that she was cared for, that she wasn't alone in the world. And in doing so, they began to transform not just the jail cell but the entire town. The transformation of the jail cell was remarkable. It was as if a wave of kindness had washed over the cold, hard space, leaving behind a trail of warmth and color. The once bare floor was now covered with a patchwork of blankets, softening the hard surface and creating a cozy play area for Lily. Toys, of all shapes and sizes, filled every corner. Dolls with bright eyes and rosy cheeks sat propped against the walls. Wooden horses stood guard over a collection of colorful blocks. And Lily's teddy bear, once her only companion, was now surrounded by a whole host of new friends. The chains that had once hung ominously from the walls were carefully draped with colorful ribbons, transforming them into whimsical decorations. Even the bars of the cell were adorned with hand-drawn pictures, turning them into a makeshift gallery of art. The air itself seemed to have changed. The musty smell of stone and iron was now mingled with the sweet scent of Mrs. Gable's cookies, the comforting aroma of Miss Abigail's lavender perfume, and the fresh, clean scent of Mrs. Henderson's hand-knitted doll. The jail cell, once a symbol of punishment and confinement, was slowly becoming something else entirely. It was becoming a nursery, a haven, a place of comfort and love. It was a testament to the power of community, the healing power of kindness, and the transformative power of a little girl's smile. Even the light seemed to have changed. The harsh, unforgiving glare of the bare bulb was softened by the colorful blankets and the cheerful toys. The shadows that had once lurked in the corners seemed to have retreated, replaced by a warm, inviting glow. The jail cell was no longer a prison, it was a home. A temporary home, perhaps, but a home nonetheless. And in that home, Lily was beginning to heal, to grow, and to find her place in the heart of Promise Gulch. Sheriff Clem, a man of routine and order, found himself increasingly out of sync with the transformed jail. He'd walk in each morning, expecting the usual cold, sterile environment, only to be greeted by a riot of color and the sound of Lily's laughter. He observed Lily's progress with a mixture of awe and bewilderment. He saw her slowly emerging from her shell, her sadness gradually giving way to curiosity and joy. He watched as she learned to play, to trust, to love again. And he realized that the kindness of Jebediah and the townswomen had accomplished what he, with all his authority and good intentions, could not. But it wasn't just Lily who was changing. Clem noticed a shift in the townspeople as well. They seemed more connected, more compassionate, more willing to help one another. The shared experience of caring for Lily had brought them closer together, forging bonds that might not have otherwise existed. Clem began to question the very purpose of the jail. Was it truly serving its intended function? Was it really making Promise Gulch a safer place? Or was it simply a symbol of fear and isolation? He looked at Lily, playing happily amidst her toys, and he wondered if there wasn't a better way to build a community, a way that focused on nurturing and educating rather than punishing and confining. He started to see the jail not as a place of justice, but as a place of lost potential. He realized that the resources spent on maintaining the jail could be used for something far more valuable: a school, a library, a community center. He began to envision a Promise Gulch where children were given opportunities to learn and grow, where families were supported and strengthened, and where the need for a jail was greatly diminished. The seed of an idea had been planted, and it was beginning to take root in Clem's mind. The jail's true purpose, he started to believe, was not to hold people back, but to help them move forward. One afternoon, as Jebediah put the finishing touches on the cradle, Clem approached him, a thoughtful expression on his face. "Jebediah," he began, "I've been doing a lot of thinking lately." Jebediah nodded, sensing that something important was about to be said. "About Lily? About Lily, about the jail, about Promise Gulch," Clem replied. "I've realized that this town needs something more than just a place to lock up wrongdoers." Jebediah smiled. "And what's that, Clem?" "A school," Clem said firmly. "We need a place where our children can learn and grow. A place where they can build a better future for themselves and for this town." Jebediah chuckled. "That's a fine idea, Clem. But where would we find a schoolhouse?" Clem looked around the transformed jail cell, his gaze lingering on the toys, the blankets, and the cradle. "Right here," he said, his voice filled with conviction. "We can turn this jail into a school." Jebediah's eyes widened. It was a bold idea, a radical idea, but it was also a brilliant one. He had seen firsthand the transformative power of kindness and compassion, and he knew that education could be just as powerful. "You really think we can do it, Clem?" "I don't see why not," Clem replied. "We've already transformed this jail cell into a nursery. We can transform it into a schoolhouse too. It won't be easy, but I believe that with the support of the town, we can make it happen." Jebediah clapped Clem on the back. "Then let's do it," he said, his voice filled with enthusiasm. "Let's show Promise Gulch that we can build a future based on hope and learning, not fear and punishment." He knew that convincing everyone wouldn't be easy, but with Clem's determination and the town's newfound sense of community, he believed they could succeed. The jail had already been transformed once, now it was time to transform it again into something even more meaningful. Clem and Jebediah's idea, initially met with surprise and skepticism, slowly began to gain traction in Promise Gulch. The townspeople, witnessing the positive impact of Lily's presence and the transformation of the jail cell, started to see the possibilities. They realized that a school could offer their children a brighter future, a chance to escape the cycle of poverty and hardship. However, not everyone was convinced. Some argued that a jail was essential for maintaining law and order, that turning it into a school would leave the town vulnerable to criminals. Others were simply resistant to change, clinging to the familiar even if it wasn't necessarily the best option. The upcoming election, already a significant event for Promise Gulch, suddenly took on a new dimension. It became a referendum on the future of the jail, a choice between maintaining the status quo and embracing a new vision for the town. The debate raged throughout Promise Gulch, dividing families and testing friendships. Clem and Jebediah found themselves at the center of the storm, tirelessly campaigning for their cause. They spoke at town meetings, visited homes, and shared their vision with anyone who would listen. They argued that a school would not only benefit the children but also strengthen the community as a whole, reducing crime and fostering a sense of hope and opportunity. The election became more than just a vote. It became a battle for the heart and soul of Promise Gulch. The future of the town hung in the balance, dependent on the choices of its citizens. The old ways versus the new, fear versus hope, punishment versus learning, the stakes were higher than ever before. The town held its breath, waiting to see which path Promise Gulch would choose. With the election drawing near, Jebediah stepped up to rally the town. He wasn't a politician, but he was a storyteller, a craftsman, and, most importantly, a believer in the power of community. He knew he had to reach the hearts and minds of the townspeople to show them why a school was so vital to their future. He spoke passionately about the importance of education, about how it could unlock potential, break down barriers, and create opportunities for everyone. He reminded them that their children deserved the chance to learn and grow, to become doctors, teachers, and leaders. He argued that investing in education was investing in the future of Promise Gulch. But more than anything, Jebediah shared Lily's story. He told them about her loss, her sadness, and her slow but steady healing. He described how the kindness of the townswomen and the creation of the Cradle had transformed the jail cell into a place of comfort and hope. He showed them how Lily's presence had brought the community together, fostering a sense of compassion and connection that they had never experienced before. He argued that Lily's story was a testament to the power of kindness and the importance of nurturing. He said that turning the jail into a school would be a way to honor her memory and to create a lasting legacy of hope for future generations. He pointed out that Lily, despite her young age, had already taught them all a valuable lesson about the importance of community and the power of love. He ended his speeches by urging the townspeople to vote for a brighter future, to vote for a school, to vote for Lily. His words resonated with many, touching their hearts and inspiring them to believe in the possibility of a better tomorrow. He reminded them that Promise Gulch was more than just a town, it was a community, a family, and that together they could build a future where everyone had the chance to thrive. The day of the election dawned bright and clear, filled with anticipation and nervous energy. The entire town of Promise Gulch turned out to vote, their faces etched with determination and hope. The atmosphere was thick with tension, a palpable sense that the future of their community was hanging in the balance. As the sun began to set, the votes were tallied and the results were announced. A collective gasp swept through the crowd as Sheriff Clem stepped forward, his voice filled with emotion. "The people of Promise Gulch," he declared, "have spoken. And they have chosen to build a brighter future for our children." The election results overwhelmingly favored the school. A cheer erupted from the crowd, a joyous explosion of relief and celebration. Tears of happiness streamed down faces, and hugs were exchanged freely. Promise Gulch had chosen hope over fear, learning over punishment. The transformation began immediately. The old bunks were dismantled and replaced with sturdy wooden desks crafted by Jebediah himself. The chains that had once adorned the walls were carefully removed, replaced with colorful maps and alphabet charts. The jail cell, once a symbol of confinement, was now a classroom, a place of learning and growth. Miss Abigail, the town's beloved schoolteacher, eagerly prepared for her new role. She gathered books, pencils, and slates, transforming the once barren space into a welcoming and inspiring environment. She envisioned the children of Promise Gulch filling the classroom with their laughter and their dreams, their minds eager to learn and explore. The transformation of the jail into a schoolhouse was a testament to the power of community, the transformative potential of education, and the unwavering belief in a brighter future. Promise Gulch had chosen to invest in its children, to build a foundation of hope and opportunity that would last for generations to come. The jail was gone, but in its place stood something far more valuable, a school, a symbol of promise, and a beacon of hope for the future. The day the schoolhouse officially opened, a crowd gathered outside the former jail, their faces filled with pride and anticipation. Miss Abigail stood at the door, her eyes sparkling with excitement, ready to welcome the children of Promise Gulch into their new place of learning. But before the doors could open, Sheriff Clem stepped forward, his expression serious and determined. He reached for the star pinned to his chest, the symbol of his authority, the emblem of law and order. With a deep breath, he carefully removed it, the silence of the crowd amplifying the significance of his actions. He walked over to the schoolhouse door, the very same door that had once led to the jail cell. With steady hands, he positioned the star above the entrance, then hammered it firmly into place. The sound echoed through the town, a powerful symbol of a shift in priorities, a commitment to a new vision for Promise Gulch. The star, once a symbol of law enforcement, now represented something entirely different: education, opportunity, and hope. It signified that Promise Gulch was no longer defined by its jail, but by its school, by its commitment to nurturing and empowering its children. Clem stepped back, surveying his work with a sense of quiet satisfaction. He knew that his role in Promise Gulch would forever be changed, that he would now be a protector of knowledge and learning rather than an enforcer of the law. He looked at Lily, standing proudly beside Jebediah, her eyes shining with excitement. He knew that his decision had been the right one, that he had chosen the path that would lead to a brighter future for her and for all the children of Promise Gulch. The schoolhouse door was now open, ready to welcome a new generation of learners, ready to transform the town, one child at a time. As the doors of the schoolhouse swung open, Lily, hand in hand with Sheriff Clem, stepped forward, her eyes wide with wonder. She was no longer the sad, frightened little girl who had arrived in Promise Gulch just a few weeks ago. She was now a thriving, confident young girl ready to embrace the opportunities that lay ahead. Lily proudly took her place as the first student in the newly transformed schoolhouse. Miss Abigail welcomed her with a warm smile and a stack of colorful books. The other children soon followed, their laughter and chatter filling the classroom with a joyful energy. In a corner of the classroom, nestled beside the window, sat Jebediah's cradle. It was no longer used for sleeping, but it served as a constant reminder of the town's kindness, compassion, and transformative power. It was a symbol of how a single act of love could change an entire community. The cradle became a special place in the classroom, a spot where children could go to reflect, to find comfort, or to simply dream. It was a reminder that even in the darkest of times, there is always hope, and that even the most unlikely of places can be transformed into havens of love and learning. Lily thrived in her new environment, her curiosity piqued by Miss Abigail's engaging lessons and her heart warmed by the friendship of her classmates. She excelled in her studies, her bright mind eager to absorb new knowledge and her spirit uplifted by the support of her community. She knew that she would never forget the kindness that she had received in Promise Gulch, the love that had helped her to heal, and the opportunity that had given her a new lease on life. And she knew that she would always cherish the memory of the little cradle that had started it all, the symbol of a town that had chosen hope over fear, learning over punishment, and love over despair. Years passed, and the schoolhouse continued to thrive. The children of Promise Gulch, once deprived of opportunity, blossomed under Miss Abigail's tutelage, their minds expanding, their horizons broadening. The town prospered, its future secured by the knowledge and skills of its youth. One sunny afternoon, Jebediah sat on the porch of his ranch, watching the children playing in the schoolyard. He saw Lily, now a bright and confident young woman, helping the younger students with their lessons. He smiled, his heart filled with a profound sense of satisfaction. He thought back to that day when Sheriff Clem had come to him, burdened with the responsibility of caring for a grieving child. He remembered the cold, harsh jail cell and the sadness in Lily's eyes. He recalled the simple act of kindness that had started it all, the carving of a cradle that had transformed not only a jail cell but an entire community. He realized that his simple act of kindness had had a ripple effect, touching the lives of everyone in Promise Gulch. It had brought them together, fostered compassion, and inspired them to create a better future for their children. The once feared jail was now a place of hope and knowledge, a testament to the power of community and the transformative potential of education. The sound of laughter and learning had replaced the clanging of chains and the echoes of despair. Jebediah closed his eyes, listening to the joyful sounds emanating from the schoolhouse. He knew that Promise Gulch would never be the same, that it had been forever changed by the kindness of its people and the unwavering belief in a brighter tomorrow. He smiled, knowing that his legacy would live on in the hearts and minds of the children he had helped to inspire. He had carved more than just a cradle, he had carved a future for Promise Gulch. And that, he knew, was a gift that would last a lifetime.